Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place due to the outbreak of the coronavirus 2019. This meeting of the Town of Berlin Board of Selectmen will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. The Town of Berlin will use best efforts to post an audio or video recording transcript or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting on the town's webpage, the town's YouTube channel. Approved minutes will be posted to mytowngovernment.org. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to attend the virtual meeting may attend via the Zoom webinar platform in one of two ways, with both audio and video access, or by telephone audio only. Did any board member have technical difficulties and or lose access to the meeting will recess for a period of time to see whether access can be restored. If not, the meeting will be continued to another date agreed to by a majority of the board or adjourned until our next scheduled meeting. All right. And so I'm going to call this meeting to order at 7:02. Meetings of the Board of Selectmen are generally recorded for transmission on both Berlin Cable Television Access Channel and YouTube. Your voice and image and or telephone number may be recorded. So we've got approval of the May 4th meeting minutes.
Motion to approve.
And seconded.
Any comments or questions? Okay, then we'll take a vote. Keefe, aye.
Waisaki, aye.
Stone, aye.
Okay, thank you. We have correspondence, a letter of appreciation to Fran Gill. Have you both read the letter?
Motion
Okay.
to approve.
Yes,
Okay. Did you second it, Peg?
I did. Or I
Okay.
will. There you go.
All right. Then we'll take a vote to approve the letter and send it. Keefe, aye.
Waisaki, aye.
Stone, aye.
Okay.
And thank you, Mrs. Gill, for everything that you've done. Appreciate your help.
And we also have a letter of acknowledgement of receipt of $3,000 Mabel Felton Marble Marble Memorial Scholarship Funds from Judith Kerr. And the letter, have you both read the letter, and do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve.
And seconded.
Okay, we'll take a vote. Keefe, aye.
Waisaki, aye.
Stone, aye.
Okay. Motion passes.
May I just note that the applications for the scholarship are available on the town's website and are due in hand to the board's office. We may have to adjust the in hand by 12 noon on Tuesday, June 9th.
Thank you. Thank you,
You're
Margaret.
welcome.
Mary, will you put a note out there on the town website just to remind everybody, and then it can be pushed to neighbors and residents?
Right, and I sent it to the guidance offices at both of the high schools. Yes, it goes everywhere.
Awesome. Thanks, Mary.
Okay. The next thing on the agenda is general public comment.
There is someone here, through the chair, there is someone here who has submitted public comments in writing, and the person is in attendance. And she's been promoted to panelist. It's Ornella Quinn. There's Ornella.
There I am. Hi.
Hi.
So I kind of missed a little bit of what you said because it went out on me and then came back. So I might need to ask you to repeat it.
Just introducing you, Ornella.
Oh, okay. All
Or
right.
you had submitted I guess it was some correspondence.
I did. Yeah, I did today. Mhm.
Okay. And we can take the letter under advisement, or if that's fine with you.
And when you say that, what exactly does that mean?
Keeping your letter in mind as we make decisions, as we move forward. And unless you have a further comment.
No, I mean, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I just, certainly appreciate all that you're all doing during these difficult times and trying to navigate through this crisis. And I can appreciate the need for a community outreach meeting. My concern really just is for the request for a virtual meeting, and hopefully, my concern is that this won't really give equal access to the entire community, to the entire town, and I just want to make sure that that is taken into consideration. I honestly don't know if that's going to fall on the responsibility of the town or on the applicant. But yeah, I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of that, and I hope that you work, and I'm sure you will work in the best interest of the town and make sure that everyone does have equal access, equal opportunity to express their concerns, ask their questions, and be heard.
I know that even if they cannot make the meeting, it will be rebroadcast, if that's any consolation.
Yeah, it doesn't really provide that real-time ability to ask questions and to have your questions answered. I know that that's a big part of it. It's a big piece of it, really, having the residents in town and the neighbors feel comfortable with this business, and I'm sure people would have a lot of questions. So, yeah.
Okay, Margaret, did you have anything to add as far as the requirements and how that would help out?
Yeah, there is also going to be a mechanism for submitting comments ahead of time. The town's going to require that comments and questions that are submitted ahead of time, and all residents will have the opportunity to do that. Comments and questions that are submitted ahead of time, the town is requiring that copies of those comments and questions be provided to the town ahead of time. So in real time, when those are submitted to the potential applicant, they're going to be submitted to the town as well, so the town can assure that those comments and questions are also being addressed.
Right, and I do appreciate that, and I just sometimes, but if the questions aren't answered in a satisfactory manner for the person asking the question, there's not that opportunity, right, for follow-up. But I understand we don't live in a perfect world. I just want to make sure that we provide that opportunity for people. And then I know that you see the other part of my concern in the letter really is with all the emerging studies and reports right now concerning COVID-19 and the fact that marijuana use does complicate and worsen the symptoms. So again, that, and I have provided the studies for you there from the American Medical Association, National Institute of Health, as well as the European Journal of Immunology, all stating very extreme concerns over this. But I'll let you read those for yourselves. And but given both that and the concern over equal access to this community outreach meeting, I am, of course, respectfully requesting that this virtual community outreach meeting really be reconsidered, and we consider holding a in-person meeting at a time when people can be safe, and also not be at risk for these products that they will be selling. And I understand there's going to be a bit of time before there's a lot that has to happen between now and then. But given that these products do worsen COVID-19 symptoms and complications, it might be more prudent for us to look at this at a later time. But that's all in the letters. I appreciate you giving me the time now to explain it. But
Well, we appreciate the information, and we will be discussing it later in the
Yeah.
agenda.
I appreciate that. And I know I say this in the letter, but I am so grateful that you are being very diligent about this. And I mean, I really do appreciate that you are requiring even more than what the CCC does require for them right now for a virtual outreach meeting. So really looking out for the town's best interest and the health and safety of its residents. So I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Is there any other public comment?
June's the only other one over there.
What's that?
June's the only other attendee.
Scott just popped in.
Hawkins.
Oh, did Scott?
Okay. Well, seeing no other public comment, we'll move on to our first appointment with Dave Smith from the Highway.
Good evening. I
Good
tried
evening.
my email about the monthly report.
We growing a little beard, Dave?
Yes,
Every year this time for a month.
April 11th, Memorial Day. You want to hear the short version?
Yeah,
Okay, so a good friend of mine who always had a beard his entire life, his birthday was April 11th. It's also the same day he took his life, 12 years ago. So every year I grow a beard in memory of a good friend, David.
Oh, that's sweet.
Big heart, Dave. Big heart.
So, old business, still waiting to do salt. We're trying to get the salt shed rearranged so that we can get rid of some concrete dividers that are in there. We're actually going to start that tomorrow. So towards the end of this week, by the end of next week, I'm hoping we'll have replenished the salt supply and we can close out our snow and ice account. Other than that, the only other old business we have is the ongoing issue with trees. We got called in again Saturday for another tree down. So I have talked with Margaret a little bit, and I have some money left that wasn't really earmarked for trees, but we're going to go ahead and schedule some more tree work to try to remediate some of these more dangerous trees that are they're going to have to be done. So hopefully by the end of June, we'll have another 6 days or so worth of tree work we're going to do.
We can't be the only ones who are having this sort of problem. There's nothing with the state, or they're not doing anything to sort of recognize. I mean, we're all in the same boat with the moss and the ice storms and the.
It's mostly the moth damage, and it was. I've talked with a few communities, and there was no state aid. The North Shore, Gloucester, and Rockport, they got hit very hard. Both of those communities spent a few $100,000 in tree removal over the last few years. It's a problem, but it's not. It's like hopscotch. It wasn't really fluid where the moths attacked. They skipped around the state. So. So that's our old business. As far as new business, we've started with our roadside mowing, catch basin cleaning. We're doing the edging. We've started painting some of the stop bars, yield lines. I did bring Aiden back. This is his second week back now. So you'll see him out and about mowing. I'm only bringing him back for 25 to 30 hours a week because I'm going to run out of money. So figured if I bring him back, some is good for him and it's good for the town. So on the good days, he's working, and if it's raining, we don't bring him in. Crack sealing on the roads has begun. We didn't do any of that last year. We kind of ran out of time. The gas line project is done. They still need to do a little bit of cleanup and landscaping on the side of the roads, but that project went fairly well considering the scope and the amount of traffic that road carries.
Is that the River Bridge gas line?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
The couple of developments in town are still going with no complaints, although I did notice the crew down at West Street, down by Five Corners, I'm not sure if it's because of the virus they've stopped working or if something else came up, but they've kind of, they haven't been down there for a few weeks now. The electrical trench for the community garden is going to be put in on Thursday, so they'll have electricity there.
Excuse me, through the chair, Dave, can I ask a question of Dave?
Yes.
Dave, are you going to be meeting the electrician down there when you do it, or do you
Yes.
have?
We're basically just going to dig the trench and he's going to lay the pipe and wire it. So
Okay, thank you.
that's an agreement we made prior to the contract going out to bid. Figured it would save a little money, and it's a pretty easy dig. There's nothing in the way.
Hmm.
I'm not sure if you've been up on Ball Hill, but Fred did a nice job redoing the turnaround at the town line.
Oh, good.
Yeah, he regraded. A lot of people have been using, obviously, you see all the cars parked everywhere, and they were using that turnaround spot, and it was getting quite muddy. So he brought some gravel in and brought some regrinds in and graded it and compacted it. It's very nice now.
Good.
It's been challenging with the rain. As we all know, we get a couple good days and then the rain starts again.
Or the hail.
Yeah. We had some expenses with the building. The AC unit for the radio room failed. I just got the bill for that today. It estimated at $5,000. It came in just under that, so. We got lucky there. What else? The well tank at the highway barn failed. 1-year warranty, commercial.
Hmm.
Finally, we got the roof repaired on 1870. I'm not sure if you saw the lift over there, but that was something we actually scheduled last fall, and then it turned into winter, so we decided to put it off until the weather got good again. So hopefully that's done. The slate roof was leaking around the chimney and leaking water into the upstairs, which isn't good. Let's see, other than that, the crew is doing very well considering the strange circumstances we're working under. They're getting quite a bit done with minimal expense, and it's working. So we'll keep doing what we're doing.
Well, I want to have you extend to the guys, our thanks for all their hard work during all this and for working, the different shifts. It's not easy sometimes.
No, it's not easy, and it creates a challenge for all of us.
Right.
But they're handling it fairly well. It's going to be interesting this week because Tom's on vacation, so I just have Fred working. So I'm thinking I'll be putting in a little more time than normal this week, but we'll see how that works out.
Excuse me.
Go ahead, Margaret.
I also want to express my appreciation to Dave and his crew for working with the Board of Health on putting signs up at the transfer station, working with the police on routing traffic down there. So I understand the blinky sign is down there, so it's nice and clear what the rules are. So thank you, Dave, for everything you did down there too.
Oh, you're welcome. We have a very unique crew where, these guys show up to go to work. They're not ones to sit around and not do anything. They'd much rather be out there, even in the pouring rain. The guys are out there doing some brush work today. I kind of had to say, I think enough's enough. It did let up after a while, but we didn't know that at the time. So we're fortunate. We have a good crew.
Yeah.
Dave, I want to say thank you to Fred for getting the sign up on First Parish Church lawn. It looks awesome. I've had a number of people reach out to me that they're very proud that the town would do this. They're very happy. I just throw it back to the, donor who came up with the banner and to Highway for putting it up. So thank you for that. And thank you for also picking up the trash down behind our favorite building on Linden Street today. Not quite sure why people are dumping their trash there. Probably we'll never know, but appreciate it that you picked it up and got rid of it.
Problem.
Yeah.
What we're there for.
I know. And hopefully when things come back to normal, whatever the new normal is, maybe we can revisit again, getting that building re-sandblasted, get the graffiti off it. But I have a feeling it's just going to be an ongoing battle. As soon as we clean it, somebody's going to come along and trash it again. The only saving grace is that it's not as vulgar and nasty as the first one was, which we really needed to expedite things and push things along to get that off. Now it's just, stupid. So, not sure what we can do about that to ever stop it. I don't think we ever will, but appreciate everything that you do to keep that little building clean.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Dave? Okay, well, I want to thank you very much for tuning in.
Thanks, Mr. Dave. Looks
Yay.
good, by the way.
Have a
Thank
good-
you, Dave.
Welcome.
Okay. I guess we're moving on to the town administrator report.
Okay. We'll start off with COVID-19 as usual. So the the governor's mask order is still in place. All town employees have been directed to wear masks at all times while at their workplace if they're unable to socially distance. Visitors at the transfer station, we just talked about this, are also reminded to wear masks pursuant to the governor's order. Now, it looks as though the governor is going to be reassessing the stay-at-home order on either this week or the beginning of next week. So we are talking here locally about reopening town offices to begin with. We are going to have we're going to have some restrictions in place in order to assure social distancing. So it could be that we have ropes up or tables up in doorways just to maintain physical separation and things like that. But we are working on those things. I would say that when the governor decides to reopen, we're going to be paying close attention to the phases and to what other cities and towns are doing, and we are going to reopen accordingly. The Council on Aging Director interviews, I was hoping that we'd get 2 preliminary interviews this week, but the Council on Aging is going to be meeting tomorrow to discuss various things, including representation from the COA on the preliminary interview panel. So it looks like we're not going to be able to have preliminary interviews until next week. FY21 wage adjustments, and tonight I'm going to be making wage recommendations to the board. I am going to be recommending that the COLA for non-union, non-contract employees not be included at this time, but we've discussed in the past this contingency line item where I would like to see funds that otherwise would have been put toward COLAs be kept in the contingency line. And when the independent HR consultant comes back with the class and comp study to look at any positions that are really below median range for comparable positions in area municipalities. That way, at least those adjustments could be made this year in order to bring people up to a median range. I did talk with the Personnel Committee last week about this approach, and they expressed support for it. Next, Division of Local Services has actually begun issuing regulations and guidelines on the COVID-19 emergency legislation. So there is some financial guidance coming out now. And just very briefly, a couple of things that we might want to pay attention to. The first would be the FY20. There's an FY20 free cash, what I call allowance. So the current year's certified free cash typically goes away on June 30th, and it's not available until free cash is certified the following fiscal year. Well, because of this emergency, the director of local services is going to be able to authorize appropriation of current year's certified free cash into FY21 if needed for a few different specific reasons. First, if the town is unable to adopt an operating budget by June 30th, but it also applies to the town's inability to approve FY21 capital budget appropriations, and appropriations to reserve. That's particularly interesting because the Capital Planning Committee, when we started going through all this and they had to revise their recommendations, they did recommend deferring $140,000 in capital projects to a special town meeting later. And they also recommended deferring funding in the amount of $124,900 to a capital stabilization fund. So June and I have not had a chance to discuss this yet, but I think this is something that we should absolutely think about, because otherwise free cash is not going to be available for those purposes until it's certified for FY21 later in the fall. The next item that we've been talking about is the 1/12 budget, or the month-to-month budget. This is, it appears, based on the regulations they've just put out, it appears that they're only going to accept 1 month at a time. So they're not going to accept a group of months, like a month-to-month for July, August, September. They will allow cities and towns to submit a July expenditure budget, and it's actually a deficit spending budget. So it's really only looking at the expense side, and it's only for things that we would consider fixed costs or non-discretionary costs. So I think, and DLS has recommended strongly that if any city or town risks not being able to adopt their budget by June 30th, and as you know, we're scheduled to do this on June 22nd, that they should submit the request, because if there is no appropriation at town meeting, if there is no request to deficit spend or submit an expenditure plan, we will have no funding available at the start of FY21. So that's something else that June and I will discuss, and I will bring back to the board. The next is a River Bridge Development Agreement and modifications. I am going to attempt to schedule a small work group session of local officials to discuss the report that the fiscal impact study consultant has prepared. I think it does need discussion. We need to better understand what it means moving forward. So I'm going to try to do that for next week. The Council on Aging van, as you know, that was delivered last Monday. And that's another subject for the Council on Aging discussion tomorrow at their meeting. They're going to be talking about, they're going to be talking about the van logo and having a design contest, and about the funding that's going to be required. So I'm interested in attending. I want some clarity on what they're looking at and how much money this could potentially cost, and timeline for design contests. Sounds like fun. Okay, the next thing, solar. We talked last week about the solar pilot negotiations and our team's lack of progress with the solar developers for the Randall Road Solar Project. The special permit conditions that were issued by the ZBA include a condition that requires all tax issues, including any pilot agreement, must be resolved to the satisfaction of the Board of Selectmen. We, the team, and Lisa and I explained this last week, we do not believe we are going to make any progress with the solar developers. So I am going to be recommending to the board, I hope to be making this recommendation on May 18th, if not the following week, that the town proceed with assessing the personal property taxes for those assets according to the cost and valuation data that we have available and in accordance with DOR regulations. The moderator, I actually went to Berlin Memorial School last week, measured out the gym and the cafeteria for potential overflow accommodations for town meeting. I made copies, gave them to the moderator. He has indicated that he's looking at appropriate use of space at Berlin Memorial School, taking into account social distancing. So I'm going to stay in touch with him on plans for that. The Laura property, this is just just kind of a refresher from last week's conversation, that it was discussed about having a community discussion about acquiring the property at the board's coffee talk on Thursday, June 11th. So we may want to put that on the next board's agenda to talk about coffee talk topics for June 11th. I spoke with the architect for the highway barn last week regarding solar potential to see if there's any way that we could accommodate solar. I am awaiting more information to see if there is any potential, given the roof structure, that solar could be accommodated. Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness, the MVP workshops that were originally scheduled back in April are now planned to be held later this month, late in May, in two 2-hour sessions. So rather than having a full day stakeholders workshop, it would be divided up into a few shorter sessions. After that, a report, CMRPC would work on a report, and we would have to hold a community information session. Again, that would be tentatively June 11th, immediately before the board's coffee talk. So not interrupting coffee talk, but from say 6 to 7 that night. And we have received a 1-month grant extension for that program that otherwise would have ended June 30th. I submitted the town's 2020 Housing Choice Designation application last week. I do have one more piece of information that needs to be uploaded, and that is to reflect the number of net housing unit, the net housing unit increase over the last year. And the ADA self-assessment is actually wrapping up that whole project. The consultants were in last week. They finished their visits at the town facilities. They're going to be writing up a report and then having reviews of that report. And then they're going to be providing the town with a big plan and self-evaluation. And that is going to allow the town to potentially qualify for additional grant opportunities through Housing Choice and other grant programs. So I think that's it for today.
Okay. Peg, do you have a question?
Two, Margaret,
Yes.
and apologies if I missed it. I know that you mentioned that we're not going through with the COLA, but I know that there's a couple requests to extend hours of certain positions. You're shaking now. Okay.
No, I'm not recommending,
Okay.
I can't recommend those increases at this time. But again, the funding that would have gone toward those, I am going to recommend be kept in a contingency budget line. We can discuss that, but no, I'm not recommending that those move forward at the current time.
Okay. And then the second one, I'm just going up in your report. This is the solar pilot, the negotiations.
Yes.
So where you had said that you'll probably recommend going forth with the property tax,
Mhm.
I'm assuming that the owner is like aware of what's going on, and that, am I incorrect or correct in saying that they're going to be handed a tax bill from the town?
You're correct. They're going to be handed a tax bill from the town. The issue that we had, I tried to explain it last week. The issue we have is essentially an impasse on the tax status of the assets of the project itself. They believe it's tax exempt based on information they have. We believe it's taxable personal property. And so, yes, they will be billed for personal property.
Do they know? I'm assuming yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
They're
They know-
very
I think-
aware
Yeah, they know where we stand.
happen.
All right. Okay. All right.
They
I'm
just
done.
don't, they will appeal in all likelihood.
Yeah, they probably will.
Okay. Thanks both. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Lisa, do you have any questions for Margaret?
Nope.
Okay. Then we'll move on to old business and an update of fiscal year 2021 budget.
Okay, let's see, what should we do? I sent out the budget worksheet again today, this time with a couple of revisions. So I'm gonna go ahead and put it up on the screen, and we'll just go down columns on the different pages, okay? Is that all right with you?
Yep.
Okay,
That's fine.
all right, I'll do that. All right, so we can start then with, done. Let me move this way out of my way. I'm on the draft income 1-year ladder, and we're going to focus on this column right here. We've been over this column before, but I wanted to just touch on a couple of revisions that I've made to this particular sheet. Nothing at the top is changed. We have made, the administrative finance team has made recommendations on revisions to certain revenue categories based on the state's fiscal situation and what we anticipate for revenues and local receipts. So these two, This section right here that ends with the 201268 remains unchanged for now. And for local receipts, this also remains unchanged for now. Okay, we are watching what's happening at the state very closely, and we're also watching local construction activity to see how quickly things or how things move forward. This next section right here, other revenue sources, I believe last week we talked a little bit about using assessor's overlay surplus toward the utility appraisals that have to be done next year under DOR regulations. So this uses assessor's overlay surplus to fund those specific utility appraisals in the revaluation line. The next is the prior capital article closeouts. Nothing here has changed since last week. This is intended to fund, in large part, Berlin Memorial School's capital assessment. Their capital assessment is actually request is actually $120,000. This $110,535.75 would be used to fund that. And the additional funding would have to come from raise and appropriate. The next item, this is a new piece right here, free cash. It is not, I want to make it clear, it is not a best practice to use free cash, which is considered a non-recurring funding source, to recurring costs in operating budgets. However, we have trimmed some things out of the operating budget, and I'll go over those with you in a minute, that might potentially need to come back, or the town may need to have some funding available for these items later in the year. So in that for those particular things, free cash would be proposed to be used as the funding source, again, strictly for what we would call the contingency line item. And I'll show you where that is on the budget worksheet. So that would be a total of $140,000, and there's a range of needs, of funding needs in that, potential funding needs, I should say. And anything that remains in that contingency line item would revert back to general funds. And then the last thing on this page that I have revised back to what was originally the proposed, the projection is assessor's overlay. So that's this line right here. This is an allowance for abatements and exemptions. And so this will pay for any costs that are incurred through ATD cases. It'll pay for the tax credits that are given to senior tax work-off participants. So we want to be able to allow ourselves a little bit of flexibility. This previously, when we did our first revisions, this was down to $160,000. I have bumped this back up to $200,000. Okay, so over to the main revenue summary page. We're going to focus on this column right here. So a lot of the numbers, just like the last sheet, a lot of the numbers in here remain unchanged. And there are a few, oh darn, I should have frozen those panes. Hold on one moment. I think I can do it here. Oh, no, I can't see it, sorry. Oh, I think I can get it. Can you guys see this column and this column?
Yeah.
My screen is so tiny, it's hard for me to see. All right, so the local property taxes used, that projection is not changing. However, after scrubbing recap sheets for the prior 2 years, town meeting results and other things, I was able to adjust the actual amount used for FY20. This is increased from an amount that was that had been in here before. So more local property taxes were used last year essentially than what I had previously assumed after I went back and scrubbed the actuals that were submitted to the state. This was the amount of local property taxes used, plus the new growth was also applied. So this amount here was through taxation. I am not recommending any change to what we previously projected for the use of local property taxes. And the reason for that is because this follows the tax levy formula that DOR puts out, and it allows the town to stay on a level, not a level, but a gradually increasing plane for taxation, rather than seeing spikes in one year and then maybe dips in another year. This will allow consistency. And the difference between the FY20 actual taxes used and the amount that we're projecting is a 2.3% increase. Compare that to a 13.2% increase from 19 to 20. So there should be some relief that taxpayers see by reducing it to this kind of controlled formula approach. The next line hasn't changed. That is the new growth projection. This is state aid. Sorry, I have to move it over again. This is state aid. That is the reduced amount that the administrative finance team recommends at this point, because we do believe our cherry sheets are going to be hit. We just don't know to what extent. This is the amount of local receipts we're projecting. This was significantly decreased, if you remember, because of primarily reduced building permits being issued, even in the current year. The next item is offset receipts, and that $310,000 is from transfer station offset receipts, electrical inspector, and plumbing gas inspector, and combined those total $310,000. You can see the detail on the next sheet if you'd like. The next item is reserve receipts. That total is $437,364, and that is comprised of use of Highland Commons public safety funds totaling $324,064. That's to pay down 1 year on ladder truck debt service and to pay an amount for base wages for two police officers and 1 firefighter EMT. The next, other revenue sources. This wasn't previously shown as a category. There were a couple of things that were bundled in. I think it was offset receipts. This other revenue sources is the prior special article balances that I referenced on the last sheet. Plus, it's also the free cash that's proposed to be used for the contingency line. So then we have less obligations. Every year the town is charged, there are state charges there are cherry sheet charges and cherry sheet receipts. The charges, the number up here for state aid reflects what we expect as gross, as just state aid receipts only. This number down here reduces, it takes into account the assessments that we also see on those cherry sheets, plus it takes into account the assessor's overlay that was shown on the last page, the allowance for exemptions and abatements, because those are also charges on our recap. We have to take those from our revenues, otherwise we're going to find ourselves short. The only other way we could do this is to show them as both a revenue and expenditure. But right now, where they're not captured in revenues, we have to show them as an expense. There's no offset here. So our net income, our net revenues are $14,408,371. All right, so in the revised budget column, which we'll be going over shortly, the total of that column is $14,408,371. So what you see here is what would be a balanced budget. We've got the revenues equaling the bottom line of the expense budget, $14,408,371. And I just want to quickly go over this bottom here. These are maximum budget calculations. The town is in kind of a fortunate situation where it actually has excess levy capacity, and that's because it passed an override a few years ago and has attempted to stay away from taxing to the override amount over and above the 2.5% increases allowed under Prop 2.5. What has happened over the past couple of years is that additional taxation has been used that has caused that excess levy capacity to be dipped into. And it's good that the town had the excess levy capacity to dip into, but we want to try to control that. We want to try to control the amount of taxes being imposed on the taxpayers. So when we go down this column, maximum budget calculations, a lot of these numbers are going to look familiar from above. But here is the debt exclusion amount. So this is the FY21 amount that is represented by the debt service for this, in particular, the highway garage. This is the highway garage debt. I think it's only the highway garage. Yes, it's only the yep, it's only the highway garage. So it's 893,954. That's the number we're looking at for FY21. When we go down the column, you'll see the maximum allowed budget after we take into account all the revenues, the debt exclusion, and then reduce that total by the cherry sheet assessments and the assessor's overlay. The maximum allowed budget would be $15,302,25. What is being proposed at the moment is $14,408,371. And look at the difference. The difference is $893,954, which equals the debt exclusion amount. So this reflects using all funding sources outside of the debt exclusion. Whereas in FY20 actual, if you look at the debt exclusion amount here, it was $991,402. But after we funded the budget, the remaining amount, the excess levy capacity we had was only $749,986. So you could see that we tapped into that debt exclusion amount to fund the budget. This brings us back into controlled use of the tax levy plus under other funding sources. Did that make any sense at all? I hope.
Yeah,
Okay.
it did for me.
Okay. Next, want to jump over to the expense sheet then?
Do we have a choice?
Is that a rhetorical question?
Yeah, really.
No. All right. Here we go. The recommendations for tonight are shown in that pink color. We're just going to go right down. Keep in mind that this column, column Z, reflected in most cases level funding of wage lines. And you've already been through most of the expenses, so we won't be addressing those tonight. So the recommendations that I'm putting forward begin with selectmen's salary. That's elected salaries, that level funds at the FY20 level. Selectmen full-time wages, that also level funds at the FY20 level. This actually reduces it to base wages. It takes out limited overtime costs that were included previously. We'll talk about my contract shortly. I am going to be proposing opening my contract for the purpose of reducing my FY21 wages to the FY20 level. Accountant full-time salary, this level funds at the FY20 level. Wages, there was a request submitted to increase the accounting clerk position to a full-time position, which would have moved the wages into this cell. At this point, I am recommending that the hours and wages remain at the FY20 level. Assessor's salary, this recommends funding at the FY20 level. Assessor's part-time salary. This also recommends funding at the FY20 level for the number of hours previously or paid in the current year. This does not account for any increase in hours. This next line is for, it's wages part-time in the assessor's office. The only increase here is due to a couple of extra hours needed for revaluation. So that's a total of $289 that might be paid for a couple of extra hours. The treasurer collector salary, level funded at FY20. Part-time wages, this is an increase from FY20 because the file clerk, not because there's additional hours, but because the file clerk is now, is considered a full year employee rather than half-year senior tax work-off, half-year town employee. Next is town clerk salary, recommended level from FY20, and same thing with the part-time salary. Moving down. Public buildings wages part-time. This is actually increased to reflect the 0.5 FTE position that was actually created this year. This just reflects the full year of wages for that position. The next item is an expense line that I noticed I didn't present to you last week. This is for public buildings expenses. Dave was talking about some breaks and fixes that needed to happen at some of the town building. This is the line that tries to capture all of those repairs for all town buildings. And over the past 5 years, that line has been extended to or above what was appropriated originally in that line. So there have been some building needs, and I'm recommending that that be level funded at $100,770. Police salary, currently, these are all, well, they're not all subject to change. There are some lines that are subject to change. This is the chief's salary, and currently I'm presenting a recommendation for the contract increase. Wages full-time, that is for the officers. All officers are covered by the collective bargaining agreement, and these are the wages based on that collective bargaining agreement. Part-time wages, same thing. They are covered by the CBA, so these wages reflect the increase due to the collective bargaining agreement. Fire and EMS salary, this is the chief's salary. Right now, my recommendation is to fund it at the contracted increase. However, he may be speaking with the board about opening his contract as well. He stopped in today, but I'm not going to speak for him, so I'll leave that with him. The next are wages for full-time wages. This actually is a reduced amount from FY20, reflecting a slight increase in overtime wages, but all full-time wages would be funded at the FY20 level. And then wages part-time, this is a large increase. This is what I'm recommending due to the 3-hour coverage for per diem shifts that the chief is recommending. Right now, we have a gap in per diem coverage for day and evening shifts. This would cover that. When we get to the contingency line, we'll bump up to that later, but I'll explain about additional fire EMS costs that would be included in there and used only if necessary. The next is the building inspector salary line. It's shown as an increase from FY20, but it does reflect the FY20 annualized salary. This year, he was only paid for a portion of FY20 because he was hired during FY20. Full-time wages here are eliminated, and part-time wages are only increased slightly to cover, I believe it's 56 hours of backfill for the building commissioner during any vacation or sick leave he might have. And it's only for it's only for a fraction of the hours the building commissioner works each week. I think it's like 4 hours.
Does that include the clerk also?
It includes the clerk also, and it includes the clerk's wages for ZBA as well.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one is animal inspector salary. I'm recommending that that be level funded from FY20. Same thing with animal control officer salary, level funding from FY20. Communication wages, same thing. This line, as was a situation with a line above, eliminates any overtime hours. This is only base wages. Highway salary, level fund at FY20, same thing with full-time wages. Part-time wages would be increased minimally, minimally. I have an explanation for everything. I don't want to say, I might have to come back to this because I cannot remember why this number is here. All right, we'll go down though. Snow and ice, all level funding. This is the snow and ice lines, as you know, can be deficit spent. So transfer station wages, part-time wages, these are reduced because one of the higher, oh, that's right, part-time wages. Part-time highway wages, that covers police details needed for road work. So that is, that's included in the highway part-time wages. So that's an increase of $14.40 to account for the detail wages, police detail wages. Okay. Okay, back to the transfer station wages, part-time. This eliminates one of the higher paid transfer station attendants. So the total wage line has been reduced by the difference between the higher paid employees' wages and lower paid employees' wages. Cemetery part-time salary, recommend that be level funded from FY20. Board of Health salary, same thing. Board of Health wages part-time. You know what? This is one exception to the additional hours that were requested in some other lines. Oops, sorry about that. I'm bouncing around. This actually provides for the Board of Health clerk to be able to take minutes at meetings. Currently, that person does very little office work for the Board of Health. I've had a chance to see what type of demands there are in the Board of Health, not just with COVID-19, but with all of their other work. So this funds, I can probably tell you, this will fund an additional here. It increases the hours from 234 hours to 306 hours a year. Okay. Next is Council on Aging part-time wages. This line is higher than FY20, but it reflects the reclassification or the grade adjustment that was approved in FY20 for the COA director. The wages for part-time wages for COA, this reflects the hourly rate increase for van drivers and the additional van drivers that are going to be needed as the van schedule gets back up and running and increases. Veteran salary level, recommend level funding at FY20. Library wages part-time, as with the Council on Aging Director, this was something that was actually recommended and brought forward and should have been done in FY20, and for whatever reason was off the budget. So I'm recommending that adjustment be made to reflect FY20, the FY20 adjustment. And that, oh no. Now, there are a couple of other things that I really wanted to call your attention to because of COVID-19. So potential impacts. If we have, and this might be a worst case scenario, but if for any reason we lose large commercial and we lose that economic base, our commercial tax base, there is potential that we might not be able to support the level of staffing that we are used to. Now this, again, I hope this is a worst case scenario, but I am recommending increasing the unemployment insurance line to $50,000. We budget the full amount that we anticipate paying in unemployment, and this is an extraordinary circumstance that could become more extraordinary if we lose some of our commercial businesses. So I would recommend for FY21 anyway, increasing that amount to $50,000. And the same thing holds true here. Chapter 32B, this is health insurance. If we have any employee whose spouse is laid off, for example, that is a qualifying circumstance that would allow the employee to subscribe subscribe to the town's health insurance in the middle of the year, not even, not during open enrollment, but anytime during the year, if there is a qualifying, if
Life
there's a
event.
qualifying event, thank you. I'm trying, like circumstance, situation, event. So what I have done here is I have increased this line by what the town would be spending on one potential additional individual plan and 2 additional family plans. I think it's more likely that it would be family plans that the town would have to absorb if a spouse lost their job and was no longer receiving insurance. So those are the 2 lines that I am recommending increases to. And there's the bottom line, 14,408, 371. Should I quickly jump up to the contingency line and explain that? Would you like-
Can you
Yeah.
hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So somehow I lost the shared picture.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh,
You
let me
might
try
have
it.
to log out and log in again, Chris.
Would it be pin video?
Can I stop share and then share again? Do you think it'll come up?
No, I don't have any picture at all. I just have the little side view of each of you.
Oh, okay. Let me stop share and try to put it up again. How about that? Maybe that'll work. Yes?
Yes. I don't know what I did. If I did that or what?
Well, there it
It's
is.
magical.
Thank you.
There it is. All right, so if you'd like, I probably should explain the idea of the contingency line item with you.
Mm-hmm.
That's way up here, way up top, right here, line 20 as it stands right now. So this line is proposed to be included for specific reasons. And I provided the board a draft contingency line item policy and procedure for you to have a first look at. This is only for discussion, not your action tonight. But there were, in the original budget requests, there were fire EMS costs that were requested for FY21 based on new construction and increased town population, primarily at Riverbridge, and anticipated medical responses at Riverbridge. And then the other are potential town costs resulting from health and financial impacts related to COVID-19. So this line would include advanced life support intercept costs that exceed the amount already budgeted for ALS intercepts in the fire and EMS departmental expense line and are attributable to required ALS intercepts due to increased calls from occupancy at Riverbridge or to COVID-19 related intercepts. In the case of COVID-19 related intercepts, we don't know if there's going to be a second wave of COVID-19. We don't even know if the first wave is going to go away. So this money, again, is in here as a contingency, and that total inside this line would be $40,000. Fire EMS, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
140?
No, just 40,000.
Okay. Gotcha.
The fire and EMS chief also requested 1/2 year of wages, holiday pay, and estimated overtime for an additional career firefighter EMT position. This would have been a position effective January 1, 2021. And we don't know the rate at which the apartments at Riverbridge will be occupied at this point. We think they'll be moving along. We just don't know for sure. And so we don't know whether a January 1st date is appropriate. We don't know if the firefighter EMT position is in fact required in FY21 at this point. So the total that's put in here for that is $27,500. Then there are additional fire and EMS department on-call personnel costs. If after budgeted amounts are expended, there's still a need for on-call due to occupancy at Riverbridge. And the total we're projecting in here for additional on-call personnel costs is $6,000. And now we'll get into the market wage adjustments, which I mentioned a little while ago. All those COLAs that have been eliminated and additional hours that were requested have been put into a column. And I would like to wait for the expert consultant who is doing the town's compensation and classification report to see if there are any base wages for non-union positions that really lag behind the area median and mean range for comparable positions in surrounding towns. And the total for this, based on those adjustments that have been made to COLA, COLA being removed and hours being removed, is $33,000. And then finally, any COVID-19 qualifying personnel expenses related to the Family First Coronavirus Response Act, which is the federal act that allows for emergency paid sick leave and extended family medical leave. Both of those acts inside the FFRCRA allow for payments to be made to employees for sick leave, and we don't have that budgeted. We don't know if we're going to need it, but we don't have it budgeted. And I'd also like to include expenses that are required for supplies, services, and equipment associated with the COVID-19 national declared emergency, and that would be eligible for future FEMA reimbursements. So the total for that portion is $33,500. Now, I want to be clear that this line would require several approvals for expenditure. First, a written request would have to be submitted to the town accountant and the town administrator for review and sign-offs as to the specific amount and purpose of the requested expenditures and the availability of funds for that requested purpose. The next would be written approvals by vote of the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee. Both would have to approve by vote. And then for any of the personnel related issues, so the new position or the market rate adjustments would also require Personnel Committee approval, and that approval would have to be voted prior to the Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee voting their approvals. So in order to maintain firm internal controls on expenditures from this line, we would require several approvals. Any questions? Yes.
Margaret, that right there is a rhetorical statement. Are there any questions? I have 4.
Okay.
When is the collecting bargaining agreement up for renewal for police?
June 2021.
Okay. And I realize my next question is going to ask you to look into your magic 8 ball,
Uh-oh.
you know, so if you can get that going. Based on what we have today for expenses, for money coming in, do you see any hint of any furloughs, potential furloughs coming for anybody in Berlin?
Based on the information we have
Today.
at this moment,
Yes.
at this moment, no, but it's all subject to change.
Okay. All right. That's what I thought, but wanted to ask. All right. Third question. On the 40,000 on your contingency line for the advanced life support, the intercept costs, have you or the chief had any discussions on how that 40,000 can potentially bump up against us getting an intercept vehicle and kind of removing the need to call in towns?
We actually, we haven't discussed it, that particular item, but when I was doing this, I was actually thinking about expanding the purpose of that $40,000 if funds are available to begin the transition to exploring ALS.
Okay.
whether it's by fly car or what have you.
Right.
So I was thinking of that. It's not currently written in the policy, but it's something that we could consider expanding to.
Okay, because I believe that there's already a paramedic that we have. I mean, obviously, the paramedic would probably need to be on call to go out at whatever ungodly hour of the day. But, if there's a way to balance that off for, like Bolton, we get our
Yeah.
own fly car,
Yeah.
then that kind of goes away. Which leads into my fourth question for you. On on number 3, on your contingency, where you talk about additional fire and EMS support about the apartments.
Okay.
What is the plan if all of a sudden there are now lots of calls to the apartments that either require just regular EMS that needs to go down or requires ALS? I mean, where are we with that?
Mm-hmm. This is something that was that the fiscal impact study is supposed to provide direction to.
Okay.
And I am trying at the moment, we got a revised draft of the fiscal impact study last week. And when I noted in my TA report tonight that I want to call a working session of the, at least a mini working session of the local official stakeholders, I want to discuss the implications of that report.
Okay.
As it relates to responses at the apartments. I need to be able to better understand the report.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions for Margaret on the budget or the contingency policy? Go ahead.
Through the chair, the contingency policy is just in very draft form. I'm not requesting that the board vote on that tonight. If the board's not ready, we may want to tweak it.
Well, I just was wondering if it's a moving target at this point.
At this moment, I would say no, but
Because it's very specific.
it's very specific. And at this moment, I don't see additional costs. For example, we have a reserve fund for extraordinary and unanticipated costs. So we have cut, for example, the veterans benefits line. If we have another veteran come on, that would be deemed extraordinary and unforeseeable and would qualify or should qualify for a reserve fund transfer. So I was thinking about those things too, but that really would qualify for reserve fund transfer. So at this point, I'm not seeing a lot of additional.
This is mostly things that you would normally put in the budget to sort of pad it out, but can't because of COVID.
Yeah, and because of COVID, and we want to evaluate these things over the next year. We want to see what the tracking is like when the occupancy increases at Riverbridge and when COVID continues to move through. And so this allows us that opportunity.
So Peg and Lisa, are you comfortable with the contingency policy, or would you prefer to wait and think about it for another week?
I'm actually comfortable with it. I think it's a good idea.
I am too. I mean, and Margaret was able to answer several of my questions in it. So, and I like the constant peer review of, you just don't get to spend it. You've got to really explain why, and you've got multiple levels of approval that you need to go through. So there's constant oversight on it. So Margaret, kudos to you for putting that together, and your the finance committee and June company on that.
Thank you. And just to reiterate, this line would be fully funded from free cash. This is not being funded from taxation. This line would be from free cash, allowing any unexpended balances to revert to general fund monies.
Well, I'm also very comfortable. So I was wondering if anyone would like to make a motion to approve.
So moved.
And seconded.
And a vote. Keefe, aye.
Wysocki, aye.
Stone, aye.
Thank you
Okay.
all.
Motion passes. Very good job.
Thank you. And are you all set? Was that motion also on the expenses? Or was that everything, or was that just the policy?
That was the policy.
That's just the policy.
Okay, so then the
You-
budget lines.
Motion to approve the budget line items that were proposed.
And seconded.
And third. And so we will take a vote. Keep aye.
Warsaki, aye.
Stone eye.
Thanks so much for all your hard
Fact.
work, Margaret.
Yeah, Margaret, I can't thank you and whomever has had a hand in this for this. This is, I mean, this is my second year of budget, so I'm sure that you have made this as painless as potentially can be where we are right now in the state of the world.
Thank you, and I have to thank June, and I have to thank the administrative finance team, because without them and their historical knowledge, it would have been, I would have been asking a lot more questions.
Well, I know June's online too, and I'm sure she can hear us, so thank you, Miss June.
Ditto. Shall we move on then to the annual town report? Do we have an updated annual town report, Margaret?
I'm going to ask Mary if she could get on for just a moment, because I know that she was emailing back and forth. Mary, any updates on annual town report receipts by
They're
email?
copying you and me at the same time. The only thing that we were working on today was some minor information about office hours and best contact information.
Okay. Okay, so thank you. And so according to the board's town meeting action calendar, today was the day to direct the printing of the annual town report. I did see that Barry is going to work with FinCom. He's going to attend FinCom's meeting on Wednesday to try to get the finance committee's budget from them. So in order to assist, I am going to boil down all those numbers in the budget and revenue sheets to a format that the finance committee is familiar with for the annual town report, and see if we can move on that on Wednesday night.
So do we want to make a vote contingent on all of that, or do we want to wait until next Monday?
Do we
Wait till next Monday.
know what's missing?
Not
Oh, look
much,
at my hair. Isn't that awesome?
but you don't have the copy, even the updated copy, so it's kind of ridiculous to say print it, because you have to have the one that you have currently, which is missing the stuff that's even been improved since then.
Can we get them to send us something by the end of the week?
It was asked for, was it not, Margaret, already?
Mhm. I'm going to tell you that in my former communities, if reports weren't submitted by the deadline, and I do have a policy for this that I'm happy to bring forth to the board for the future. If reports were not submitted by the deadline, the annual town report was printed without those reports, and any additional reports were just inserted as addenda. And that's the way it
Yeah.
worked.
I mean, we even have an article that talks about that at town meeting.
Mhm. Mhm.
So what are you recommending, Margaret?
Given that I don't want to change, the path that was prescribed in the town meeting action calendar, but given that finance committee has to meet on Wednesday night and they're potentially going to be voting their budget in whatever form that may be, that you could direct the printing upon the finance committee providing the data for the annual report.
There's no penalty to waiting until next Monday. There's none. There is enough time to wait until next Monday.
No, I realize there's no penalty. I just, you
I
know,
think next year, knowing how this goes, I think next year Margaret has a better handle on how this goes, and I think that you're going to be in a better position next year. But for this year, it is what it is, and COVID has provided some extra time, which is actually going to have this thing out earlier than it has ever been before, is my guess.
Peg?
it bothers me that we go through the motion and the discussion and the deliberation to come up with calendars for dates where things are due. And there's always, I don't want to use the word excuse, but there's always a reason why things are late or things that can slide. And, we always have plenty of time. So, there's a part of me that says, why bother to make a calendar when, well, we don't adhere to it, but also knowing that we need finances input on it. And knowing that there's a delay, and again, there's a delay in our town meeting, so there's another opportunity to let things slide. I'm fine with letting it go to next Monday, but I will not be fine with letting anything more slide as of next Monday. This is yet again another excuse of, well, we have time, we have time, we have time. I'm done with we have time, we have time.
This is not fixing we haven't fixed the underlying problem. The underlying problem is we're making this contingent on volunteers so you need to fix the underlying problem. You need to bring more of this in-house.
Well, or have better communication to the volunteers and the expectations, and hopefully they can, help out and comply with the dates.
Tell you the other thing is Lori will be done with her job shortly. So if she continues to do it, she will have more time as of next year. But this year she's finishing off her job, taking care of her grandchild, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So
I
we also
know.
need to make allowances for that.
I agree that things can be put in place over this next year. I was mentioning the policy. We could have a policy that drives the timeline for the annual town report, a board policy. The board could potentially look at, having staff be charged with it, with assistance from others might also be good to try to keep it on track. So I think there are a number of things that we could look at to try to manage it. And I don't want to discount what Lori has done or Barry has done.
Oh, yeah. I think it's a tremendous job what they've done. It's just very difficult, getting it into the date.
Really, staff should at least be the one, seeking out the information and compiling that and then maybe giving it to somebody, whether Lori's work off or whatever it is, somebody actually doing it. But she doesn't have any power to get this. She doesn't know where to get this information from. She just knows it's missing.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have any really good process for this. And we haven't ever.
Well, maybe that's something we need to take a look at then.
So this is probably a discussion for after town meeting and the report is out, but I know that it came up at our very first coffee talk. It came up at last town meeting. Maybe it's time to revisit the process to split out all the town report from the warrants, so that, warrants go. That's awesome. That's easy peasy. We have that wrapped up. Town reports, you know what? They're online, they're printed, they're available in a couple places in town, first come, first serve. And then we totally avoid this again, year after year. And it's what the town wanted, that they had expressed interest in, to get to the report so that they could get the information in plenty of time and not a week before. So, a month from now, we can slap it on the agenda and talk about it after we're done. But
And the truth
looking
is,
at tightening processes.
the warrant is up online, right?
Yes.
So the pieces that people need, the warrant and the budget can go up online, as of probably Wednesday. So those are the pieces that people need. So they're getting the pieces they need for town meeting.
Yeah, I mean, most people are getting it. There's an awful lot of people who do rely on getting it on a piece of paper.
You know what? For a first look, I looked up the numbers. 90% of people have a computer. 85% of people have some sort of broadband. We're not excluding a whole lot of people by putting this up online.
There are a
Well,
lot
I
of
don't know.
towns that,
I don't want to exclude anyone.
There's
No.
always going to be somebody.
And through the chair, there are a lot of towns, many towns, who print a supply, a small supply of town reports, make them available at town meeting or places, certain places around town before town meeting, but just don't print the masses of reports that are currently mailed out here. So I think these are all things that we need to look at.
Okay, well, I think that is probably a subject for another day.
Agreed.
Regardless, are we putting this on the agenda then for next Monday? To
Yeah,
have a
I
final look?
recommend,
And please let them know that we'd like to see it by the end of the week, whatever it is, if possible. All right. We're down to review and approve required actions outline checklist for C3 Industries to conduct the recreational marijuana virtual community outreach meeting. Do you want to talk to us about one of either Peg or Margaret? Do you want to talk to us about the outline?
I can. So what I did is that I took all of Margaret's documents, whether they were the 13 steps or there were other steps that she's already provided in email. And I went through and figured it was just easier to develop a very simple table that said, and I tried to make them in sequential order. So that's where I'm going to rely on all of you to see if it makes sense and to see if they really do go in the order that they're going. That we include all the information so that when we meet with the proprietor for C3, that it's very clear to him, we need 1, 2, 3, 4, and the date that it started and the date that it's ended. And we can color code the last column to say that you're either, you're in progress, it's done, or you're outside of the due date. So obviously the end step is the date of the community outreach meeting. So once we can put a date on that, then with any project plan, you work backwards from the date that you want to hit your deliverable. So if we can, I don't know if anyone has had a chance to look at it beforehand and compare it against the documents that Margaret had or that were in last week's folder. Just to make sure that I caught everything, because my fear is that, I've missed a major step and that, no one says anything. And then all of a sudden we start getting through the process and go, whoops. So, that's how this very simple table came to be of if your, due date that you want to meet with the town is insert date here, all these items need to be met, by a certain date. So that's how this came to be.
So I had looked it over and I thought it looked fine. I guess I want to hear from Lisa and Margaret and make sure that they feel the same. Either one of you?
No, I mean, I think it's fine.
the one thing that it's me, I think, that neglected to put this in. When Ornella spoke during public comment earlier, she talked about concerns with not being able to reach the entire community. So with a virtual community outreach meeting, we'd need to assure that their Zoom software, and Peg, tell me if it's already in here, I might be just missing it, that their Zoom software will not be limited to 100 participants. It'll be like increased to, darn, I have to move, to like 500 participants.
I don't think it's in there, Margaret, specifically. If you look at number 3, where it says the applicant must include an authorized representative to participate. Oh my God, Margaret's moving. I was getting.
I'm sorry, I have to plug in, or I'm gonna lose. My computer's dying. I have to move back.
And that's why I got up and ran, because my laptop was about to die. In the testing of the technology to the date of the meeting, I think that we can update number 3 to say must have capacity of, I don't know, like whatever 10% of the town is or something like that.
Okay. Okay.
It's also, I've been on some of these where you can RSVP and, you know, they know when they reach capacity on that. And then, you know, normally everybody doesn't show up, but if there was a problem with hitting that top end too soon, you might be able to address it that way. But, you know, if only 40 people are going to attend this thing, then it doesn't make sense to make them require 500. So you might want to have some sort of RSVP process or something so you can gauge interest in numbers.
Okay.
You know, and the thing is too, is that if they're going to supply an email ahead of time, oh, I got really big. I'm looking at the camera. If this is what happens when I get stuck at home for many days. And I know that they're going to supply an email address for folks to write into questions. And they're also going to have to provide all the materials, you know, ahead of time. And then the toll-free number. So, you know, between all that, yeah, I don't know how you can talk about capacity, but I think that we have to have it high enough and tested enough, and it may even require us to, you know, reach out and see if we can get a boatload of people to try and log on during the testing, you know, and have them provide very specific instructions, you know, pictures and steps of how to log in. You know, all of us are in and out of Zoom meetings, so we just go, you know, click, click, boom, test your video, raise your hand, good to go. You know, when you've got a boatload of people who might be attending this, it's not going to be so easy. But I can't imagine that they haven't thought of those.
Well, we want to be sure they have, right?
Correct.
So,
Correct.
so, you know, that's definitely a question we can ask, you know, how many, if there are those Zoom levels, you know, you've got 100. I don't know if there's one between 100 and 500, but I know there is a level for 500, and that should.
Okay.
I spoke to one of the people who called into one of our meetings, and she said she just got her phone bill and it was $9.50 to call into our meeting. Could it be that she did not use the toll-free number?
Yeah.
I
Is there a
don't.
toll-free number?
We don't have a toll-free number.
There is not a toll-free number.
No, they either log on their computer or they have to call a toll number. This policy, this checklist requires that the proponent provide a toll-free number. It's actually in this outline.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that, you know, it isn't going to cost people anything. And I did see that it, you know.
Yeah, that's number
Is
8.
it- Yep.
Okay.
The applicant must provide a toll-free number.
There are Zoom levels of 100, 300, and 500. 500 being $20 a month.
So we don't
So-
we actually don't have a toll-free number for our Zoom meetings?
We don't have a toll-free number in the town to associate with a Zoom account because we're a local government. We've never had to have a toll-free call number
Okay.
before. By the time you actually institute getting a toll-free number and then go through the work of, there's really no good reason to do it.
So, Mary, you probably have some of the most experience on Zoom with this, you know, where you've been working with Brittany and getting other folks up, where you said that there's the levels of what, 100, 300, 500?
Right, we have 100.
So let's say that they set it for 300, do you know, and maybe it's a question for them. Let's say that we're at 300, you know, they're checking it, we're at 290, 293, we're getting towards capacity. Any idea if they'd be able to flip it up to a higher number?
Their problem, really. But a difference in cost is not enough to even discuss. They should just go
Do
and get a larger, a short term. You can do it month to month, is my understanding.
I also think we're maybe like overestimating how many people are going to show
Yeah.
for this, because when we have these sort of things at 19 Carter, what is our max? Like 40, 30?
Yeah.
Well,
100
So I
100 good.
really don't think you're going to get 500 people. I don't think you're going to get 300 people. I don't think you're going to get 100 people.
But
Well-
even if you were, you know, a softer spot would be 300, then
Well, yeah, we just want to be sure we have the capacity. They
I
have the
understand,
capacity
but
if needed.
I do think practically, if you think about this, I just don't see it.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
Problem
granted
with it
that,
is that it's not just who has ever attended in town in the past. When it's virtual, it could be anyone, anywhere
Yeah.
who,
Well, they
wants
all
to-
have the opportunity to attend board meetings now and all this other stuff, and they're not doing it. So
their
Well-
meetings are just controversial.
so
I have to
Margaret, do
grab
you
my
want,
mouse.
Margaret, do you want me to take number 3 and put in a caveat or something about talking to him, the potential number of
Yes.
attendees we
That-
can have?
Yes, either through, either to be able to have a subscription level that will accommodate, 10% of the town's population or 300 or whatever, or have provide evidence that the system, the technology has an RSVP process, trackable.
All right. All right. All right. So, where Chris, where you had mentioned that we would take Ornella's letter under advisement. I pulled up some of the comments that Governor Baker made today in his 4 phases to get the state back open. And he said in phase 1 that it's those businesses that would limit a face-to-face interaction. So, you look at this, and then he talks about steps 2 and 4. He has no idea a timetable for steps 2 and 4 because it's all going to depend upon, key data. As he put, key data indicators, continual positive trends. So I don't think at this time that we can truly wait until it goes back, until it's more open, just because it's too much of an unknown, with this. And, I took a ride down to the road the other day. To me, it's in a perfect spot. It's a self-contained building. On one side, you have a fence. On one side, you have woods. On the other side, you have, swamp land. So, chances of people being able to build a path to get in there probably slim to none. It's not near a school. It's not near a church or anything like that. Twice the town has voted to support, marijuana in town, whether it's retail or manufacturing. So, I'm happy to update the outline and get it back and put that information in regarding the number of that. And then, Margaret, I don't know what next steps are, is to hold a meeting with the gentleman to
Yep.
go over this.
That would be it. Yes, provide this and then ask him for a meeting to go over the whole thing.
Okay.
Okay, so do we want to take a vote contingent on the changes that we just talked about?
I think accepting the changes, if you're game to do that, I think accepting the changes that you talked about would be.
So the changes would be to ensure that we include some type of subscription level and evidence of the ability to RSVP. Were those the only 2 that I can kind of meld into number 3?
that was an or, wasn't it?
Is it an or? Subscription level or evidence of RSVP? Yeah, Margaret shaking, yeah.
Yes.
All right, so you know what, I can make the change tonight and I can whiz this back out to you ladies tonight, first thing in the morning. But if that's the only changes.
Do we want to move forward with this?
Motion to approve.
I'm not gonna second it because I wrote it.
All right,
This is quite the checklist.
You like that?
Oh, it's quite the checklist.
I will second the motion. And is there any other discussion, questions?
I will send the final version to you in PDF, and that's how we'll send it to him as well. So I'll send you both. I'll send you the Word document and the PDF so that we can have it. So while we're chatting with him, if he's like, oh, you forgot about blah, 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 we can go through and add it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor and a second. Take a vote. Keith, aye.
Waisaki, aye.
Stone Eye.
Okay. Margaret, if you'd like another participant when you speak with him, I'd be happy to do that with you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. So the next thing on our agenda is to vote to surplus the 2005 Council on Aging van and authorize its disposition via online social marketing venue.
So moved.
And seconded.
And we'll
Anyone's,
take- Go ahead.
if anyone's curious, the resale value is $2,535. So I've recommended that it be posted for $2,750. See if there's any bites.
Well, it's
Shouldn't
too
we
bad
do an
that-
auction?
Yeah, I mean, it's too bad that Assabet's not around because they might have bid, for their automotive. And who knows, maybe they would for next year, you don't know.
I think parts.
Maybe if this doesn't work, we might have to donate it to Assabet.
Yeah, really?
That's an option later.
All right, we've got a motion on the table and a second. Keith, aye.
Waisaki, aye.
Stone Eye.
All right, it's done.
Bye, Van.
New business. We need to discuss the town administrator's FY21 contract compensation recommendation.
Okay, so I've provided through the chair, I've provided a memorandum of agreement, keeping my wages level for FY21. So that would be at the 147,000 that was paid that's paid in FY20 would be 147,000 in FY21.
Can you remind me, in the third year, was it a $3,000 then?
In the third year, it's a 3,000, and I'm happy to revisit that. But what this means is that there's not going to be an incremental increase. So it's not the 147,000 would be 150 in year 3 instead of 151 in year 3 or something. Was that
So
right?
Are we just skipping?
52 under 52.
Are we just skipping year 2 then?
You're skipping year 2 for now. Yes.
Okay.
No, you're skipping year 2 and you're only increasing year 3 by the year 2 amount.
Oh, all right. Okay.
Okay.
I was trying to get an understanding of it.
So year 3 will be less than what was anticipated when we executed the contract.
And I guess my next question is, have you talked with council about this, or do we need to send it to council, or?
I'm fine with it the way it is. I actually used a format from Labor Council I used to use in my former towns. So this is the format that I've used for other MOAs. So if the board is fine with it, we know what the purpose and intent and everything is. So if you're okay with it, I'm okay with it.
Okay. Lisa and Peg, you okay with it?
Motion to approve.
Seconded. And Margaret, I honestly don't know how we were so lucky to find you. I mean, everything that you've done, for your consideration to, pretty much give up a portion of your salary that you are more than owed for the amount of work that you do and the time that you put on the weekends and at night. So I don't know if there's any way that we could ever repay you, but thank you.
No, this is an easy one, Peg. You don't let your
Well,
employees go without.
Well, it's
That's the
Margaret,
way you don't.
but that's you, that's you. So
That's not everybody. That's you.
Yep.
Okay.
Seconded. Yep.
Okay, so we'll take a vote. Keith, aye.
Waisaki, aye.
Stone Eye.
Okay, and the next thing I wanted to talk to you about was the Margaret's annual evaluation and the approach we should take. My suggestion would be to fill out the evaluation that we have in the past, and if you could forward them to me, I'd be happy to compile them into what we could call a public evaluation. And Margaret would be privy to each of the individual ones also.
Margaret, do you have any interest in writing your own? Almost like a 360, where we write up things about you, and then you also write up things about you?
Yeah, I'm particularly interested in that with goal setting and that's, yeah, I could do that.
Are you
Okay.
sure, Margaret? When we
I-
talked, you thought maybe,
I will do whatever the board feels is appropriate. Now, I've already done my priorities and objectives, so those could be referred to. Let's see. Don't forget though, we did those before COVID-19, okay?
Yes,
So we've
yes.
had a bit of a detour here.
Absolutely. And that was the next thing I was going to ask, is if Margaret or Mary could send us copies of the priorities that we agreed to last year.
You know that even though Margaret's like, oh, COVID-19, blah, 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 does anyone want to bet that like 3/4 of them are already done?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
No, I don't even want to look at the list. I'm scared to look at the list, actually.
No, it's all good.
Oh, look it says purchase COA van.
Yay, we did it.
I'll send that now.
Okay.
Thanks, Mary.
Thanks, Mary.
So is that agreeable to the both of you?
Yeah, I
When do you,
think it makes sense to have Margaret do her own too. I always had to do that when I was
Yep.
working, so.
I do that. Yeah, I do that for employees.
That's
too.
fine,
It's-
as long
it's
as you-
helpful.
I know how busy you are. That's why I,
What's the deadline on this?
yeah, that's what I was
Oh,
going to ask. Chris, when do you want this by?
well, I want to be able to do this evaluation before Lisa's off the board.
All right.
You know, she at least needs to submit it. So, I mean, I'm not picky about the date.
Do we want to try for like the 26th? That gives 2 weeks? And then a week for
my
you for so
God.
Well, you might need, maybe Margaret needs more time too.
All right, M2,
I don't-
how about the 2nd? June 2nd.
Fine with me. June 2nd.
All right,
Fine with me. For submitting, right?
Yes.
Okay.
for submitting. And do we want to have her submittal then? Or are we going to do our own without that?
No, everybody. So
Okay.
Lisa and I and you will all be done and along
Each
with,
individual ones.
yeah, Margaret's, and then you get to compile.
All right. All
Is
right.
the board going to have one person be the point person to meet with me, or how do you like to do that?
You know, I don't mind meeting with you and sharing the compilation. And
Okay.
I mean, that's sort of how it was done on school committee with the superintendent of schools. That's why I sort of suggested this way.
I'm fine with however you like to do it. Doesn't bother me either way.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So sounds like a plan. We'll shoot for getting our work done by June 2nd. All right. I think we're down to board questions and comments. I got one. I just wanted to let you know that I did speak with Lynn today, and she said that Assabet is having a meeting tomorrow night to reconsider the budget that they've submitted. So we'll wait to hear and see how see what kind of news that is for us.
I'm meeting with the Berlin-Boylston School District administrators and the Boylston administrator this week to have a conversation to see what paths might be available to us.
Yeah, there's a few questions out there that, I think we deserve some answers to. Just as far as, what about this? What about buses? What about athletic fees? What about, all of those things?
Mhm.
Okay, that's great. Okay, Lisa?
Just once again, I had a call today that makes me want to, encourage people once again to get early ballots so that you don't actually have to go to town offices to vote. And I don't know if we can put out again the process to do that because the person who called me was a little confused by that. So I know that it seems straightforward, but we might need to revisit that often between now and when the election is.
You mean to repeat it?
Yeah. We
Okay.
need to put step by step and say, please, I know that you're used to going there and it's easier for you to go there, but we really need you to try to request a ballot rather than putting our poll workers at risk.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Go ahead.
the application is on, the absentee ballot application is on our website. I'm not sure about the early voting. Is early voting on it too?
It is, but you know, I'm not
It's a
sure.
little buried.
It does keep getting buried. There's supposedly, if you use the early voting, or no, it's the absentee ballot form, that you could use it for the entire year.
Yes, you can. For absentee ballots, you can request.
It confuses things to say early voting. There's one form for municipal elections. There's another one in Harvard. There's
Yeah.
a special state election. There's
Yeah.
another one. Like, I think they just ought to use the absentee ballot form. I thought that was being blessed to just one
Yeah,
form does it for the whole year.
I think on Eloise's page, though, it was saying use the early ballot one for municipal elections. So,
I know.
even here, we're a little confused by,
I hesitate to take it down because it's not our silo.
yeah.
Mhm.
Either way, we need to let people know what to do and make it easy for them to do it so that they do.
Can
I've
we,
already voted.
can we use Jan? Maybe at the item, can we write up like a small?
It's not, it's before it even gets onto our social media. I take it from our website and I dump that
Okay.
link onto social media before it gets shared. It has to be fixed at the source. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I want to make sure that Eloise agrees,
Okay.
James agrees as to what the message is. Also,
Yeah.
I think that there's a desire for it to be a fillable PDF form online and not for it to be something that,
You have to print and,
Print and-
yep,
and
Yeah.
I don't have Adobe for that, but James does.
okay.
So I'm not sure where that rests.
And we could maybe even put something on the front page, just a banner or something.
A non-moving static thing that stays up for a while. It would be nice. Oh, we got a hand raised in the audience. Who is it?
Scott,
Would you like to hear, Chairman?
Who is, oh, Scott?
Scott.
Sure.
Okay, hold on.
I have to go grab my folder, but I don't
You're
want to
on
walk
mute.
away.
Scott.
I'll be right back.
there he is.
There we go.
Hi,
Hey,
Scott.
Scott.
I made the form fillable and gave it to
Ah.
Eloise. So the form online is already fillable. And if
Can you
changes
give
need
that
to be
form
made
to
to it.
me, Scott? If you send it to me, I will go and swap it out online.
Okay. And what's your just town?
Selectmen.
Selectmen at,
Selectmen.
okay.
Yep.
I'll send it
Thank
over.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Scott.
Yep.
Yeah, because I know, I mean, Mary, we can share it out to Berlin Neighbors Connect, and Peter has a way of like keeping it up on the top as an announcement, so it's
Yep.
always going to be there. I can reach out to Jane McDonald, who works the Berlin Residents Unite and United
Jane
page. and see-
Gottesman picks it up and I'll make it stick to the top of ours too. I'll keep it
All right.
thumbtacked up to the top for a while.
All right, I'll reach out to Jane and see if there's any way that she can keep it at the top of hers too. I'll just copy it from the town page, so there's no information lost.
Okay, bye. Thanks, Scott.
Okay. Peg.
I just had one. It was quick. So for those of you who have driven through the center of town, the banner is up. So again, thanks to Highway for putting it up. Thanks for First Parish Church for putting the spot, letting us put it on the spot on the lawn. There's also, as I had mentioned, with the printed banner, the donor provided another empty banner, to which I brought down to Highway, and they cut it up into smaller pieces. So if any of you walk into the town offices, into the vestibule, just go to, because I would like the word vestibule, to me it's an entryway. If you look on the floor to the right of where the green bin is, that's where they're sitting. So I put a note out on Berlin Neighbors Connect and on Residents United, encouraging people to go and to grab a piece of vinyl. It's plain white. To bring it home and to decorate it, I said that I would pick it up. So when people are done with them, and, kids can do them, adults can do them, doesn't matter, family can do it, that, I'll drive up, they open the back of my Jeep, they throw it in, they close the gate, and I drive away, and I never touch or talk to anyone. And Highway has offered to put them up on the little stakes that they had the scarecrows up for a Halloween. And First Parish Church has agreed to let us to do that. So again, just a shout out to the town. It's a first come, first served basis. I think there's maybe 20 of them, different sizes. So if you want to go down and grab one, just open the door, grab one, back out the door you go. Again, just to show continued thanks and heartfelt appreciation to all those essential workers that are either family, friends, acquaintances, or people who just drive through town to get to where they need to go. So put that out there for everybody to go grab one.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Lisa, did you have anything else?
Nope, that was it.
Okay. There is, Margaret, there is a department head meeting tomorrow morning?
Yes, there is a department heads meeting tomorrow morning, and we are going to be discussing the 1/12th, the DLS 1/12th expense budget guidelines. So we're going to be providing that information to department heads tomorrow.
Okay. Do you, if I am available, I wouldn't mind attending.
Okay.
Can someone send me the information for it?
Yep. We
Okay.
can
do it
do
now.
that for sure.
Okay. Is there anything else, ladies?
Got nothing.
Okay, then I would take a motion to adjourn.
I
you
did.
say- Okay.
I second.
But I was talking. All right.
I seconded.
All right.
Good night,
Aye.
everyone.